Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where today's episode tackles a challenge many business leaders face: how to grow beyond a single top-performing salesperson. Sean, Kevin, and special guest John Spencer reveal why relying on a superstar might be boosting short-term revenue, but stalling long-term scalability. You'll learn how structured sales processes and clearly defined ideal customer profiles can transform B players into consistent producers. Stick around to discover how to build a sales organization that doesn't just grow, but scales.
Folks, hang on to your quotas. Today's going to be a big day. We got a special guest, John Spencer, with us today, and we're going to cover some ground that we don't cover too often. We're excited to talk about growth versus scale, and what do you do as a business owner or sales leader where you have a super standout salesperson and you're trying to scale. Today's the day where you listen and take notes and make sure you learn from best practices and you avoid the practices that can get you in a bind. We're back. Sean, good to be online with you. And John, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm pleased to join you. I've been listening to your podcast for a long time, so it's a real honor for me. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. So we got a long-time listener, first-time caller. That's good stuff.
Sure.
Sean, how about you?
So everything's good for me. John, I know you're down in Austin where it's nice and hot this time of year. So thank you very much for being on our podcast. So before we hit the record button, we talked about scaling. So really interested to get your thoughts. Kevin, you want to lead us off here or you want me to do it?
Yeah, let's just get right into it. So John, you brought to us an idea that we don't talk about a lot: growth versus scale. In your terms, how do you differentiate those two? Because you got some wise counsel on this one.
Growth, oftentimes you'll find a company I'll engage with and they're growing. That's why they're able to hire. They made investments in a few salespeople. They might even have some tech they've added and maybe some marketing. And they're just, things look good, right? They're growing. But the truth is, when I get in there, I look for scale. People typically engage with me to have value creation in their organization, to have repeatable processes. And so that's really the big differentiator. Growth, a lot of times, is, as they've defined it, is about just out hustling the other guy. It's about grinding. Their idea of repeatable processing is doing the same thing over and over again, not necessarily a process. I see a scenario where one person or two sellers, you have these one or two super sellers. I think this is where we want to talk about this a little bit. And this is where I see the differentiation, that contrast between growth and scale. And that super seller is no doubt effective for their personal model. But let's face it, the business is one resignation away from a real problem. So you have that scenario. So that's not really scalable if everything's based around one human and the way that one human wants to operate. So we want to make sure the company has a process. And that process allows us to plug new people in, to onboard new people, tell them what the process is. And while not everybody's equally effective, and by the way, the other thing is that this is not over constraining. I've heard those complaints too. I've been through this a few times. We're not trying to put straitjackets on the strengths of a salesperson. These salespeople, they have different clients, they have different end users, they have different ways to approach things. We want to leave that, they have that freedom to do that. That's not what we're talking about. This is not taking their personality away. But the growth that they're experiencing, they cannot really articulate how they got it. We've all seen scenarios where we get into a business and somebody says, I look at it, I go, hey, you had a great sale with company X last year. How did you do that? Hell if I know. I'll take it any day, though. You can't even do the forensics on it. Obviously, they haven't done anything in the CRM. I can't rebuild that. I can't do the forensics on it. People oftentimes hire us to look at why they're not growing or scaling in a deep dive, but they rarely hire us to explain to them why they are growing. Now, how do we bottle that? How do we roll that across the organization?
Fantastic.
I think that's really interesting. And thank you very much, John, for doing that. And knowing your background a little bit in the lighting industry and the companies that you used to work with before you started your practice, we came from a similar background as we've talked before in the past. The ability to have B players be your top salespeople is how you grow an organization, right? So if you only grow your organization with A players, I can only hire the absolute best salesperson in the territory. Everybody else is going to fail. Guess what? That means your company isn't going to grow and scale. You can find B players and you can find C players that you can make into B minus players. And it's, as a VP of sales and as the owner of a small company, you are required to build your company with B players, because if you try to build your company with superstars, if you have Michael Jordan in all 5 positions, guess what? You're going to have a hard time beating anybody.
Yeah, culturally, it's an issue also because when I talk to these sellers, when I have these one-on-ones, certainly the superstar, hopefully when I get into an engagement, we can come to terms with there's going to be change for them a little bit, but we have to look at longer term play. We got a 3-year play here, a 2-year play, or what have you. It's going to ultimately benefit them by giving them more resources, more product, more whatever that'll allow them to ultimately be longer term successful. So my objective is never to chase the top performers out or anything like that by adding accountability. It's to embrace what they're doing right and help them. And then, and to your point, Kevin, Sean, is to go ahead and continue adding to that roster. And you're not going to get all those A players, but I challenge these folks when I do have this one-on-one with them. I try and get them to think of themselves as mini CEOs themselves. How can they embrace this longer-term vision for the company that's going to ultimately reward them? And I expect some salespeople to say, what's in it for me? And so we'll have that discussion about why should they have a stake in the longer-term vision of the company. That gets back to my discussion I have with the CEO about choosing those A players, retaining them, and making them part of the journey. But I think I want to say also that when I talk to CEOs, you can't out-process bad people. Meaning, when you think about people, process, pricing, product, I know we've all talked about those 4 Ps. I also have the T, the tech stack in there, but for the internal of the company, I tell people, think about the people part of that is 50% of it. They're not equally rated. You can have the best process in the world, a great product. Your people are critical. And that doesn't mean, just to your point, just getting high performers, but the people you do have, you have to get the most performance you can out of each one of them. And the way you do that as a leader, I come into organizations, I operate as a leader. I don't just give them a book and walk away. I have to incentivize and energize this team to take this journey with us of change, of transformation. And I want them to know that all the words stuff that they might have heard before is away. I'm going to take care of them. We're going to make sure their compensation plan is right. We're going to make sure they understand what their job is. We're going to understand what it means to do that job well. We're going to make sure the whole organization is rallied around taking care of this sales team and giving them what they need, the logistics they need to be successful.
So let's pull on that yarn a little bit more, John, because I think you've got a nugget of wisdom that every business owner and sales leader needs to hear. When a business has been performing well because of the efforts of an A-plus player, let's break that down a little bit more and say, what does it take to serve internally that A-plus player, and why is that a limiting process to scaling a business? What is it about the resource requirements of a superstar?
I'll say the caution on that, the yellow flags around that superstar. We'll start there, and then we'll go to the other side of this ledger. The caution on these folks is they begin to believe their own press releases. That's a saying I have a lot. They begin to believe they're really that good. But the truth is the whole company has been optimized around their bad habits as well as their good habits in some cases, the hustle and what have you. And really, it's almost like the company is working for them at that point. They've inverted everything. And as long as the money's come in, as long as the sales are there, why mess with success, quote unquote, but it doesn't scale again. And that's on the yellow flag side, not necessarily red flag, but the yellow flag. On the green flag side, you can actually enhance by putting a process in place, even their performance. For example, I rarely find a company that I can engage with that has a pinpoint ICP identified. And because of that, these folks are just out trying to figure their own world out. They're navigating the world blindly. So if the whole company is organized around an ICP or two or a segment or two, everybody understands the unique value proposition. That includes engineering and product development. That includes software development, whatever your segment is. We've just put rocket fuel into that top seller. Life had to be hard for them, even though they've skewed towards them in that yellow flag scenario I gave you, with all the green lights, with everybody working together and enabling them with a true scalable system, that top performer embracing this could perform well beyond what they ever thought they could. Who knows? Maybe they'll be the sales leader, because that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for somebody in the organization that we can elevate to the sales leader position, or as opposed to bringing somebody in. We'll do it either way, but I'm looking for that. And I expect everybody to be a bit of a leader in that scenario. So I don't know if that's where you're going with it, Kevin, but I think that's where you see these things cooking with gas, where you have the company rallying around what's good about the salesperson, but also putting wind in their sails, right? Pushing them forward, giving them the propulsion they need. Just like I see the relief in CEOs' faces when we get engaged about month 2 or 3, I see the same thing in the salesperson's face. And they're like, finally, somebody gets me. They understand what I've been challenging. Because I can't always tell that to the CEO, right? And so sometimes they're operating out of fear, honestly. This is what's working. They're going to keep their head down, just keep grinding through that. And if you got somebody else that's sharing the burden with them, getting them the sample cases they need, getting marketing to align with them, getting back of the house cleaned up, whatever that might be, accounts payable, receivable, everybody helping that person. Let's all help the salesperson and align with them. Treat them as a mini CEO to understand how they do their business. I love that. If we can get that synchronization, I'll tell you, it's not easy. And look, what's good about it is it takes somebody like me. I'm a very tenacious human. I am a driver, outlier, and I will not forgive and forget what our mission is. And that's why you need a leader to drive people through the finish line, including the CEO. I don't make a traction when I see a little bit of emotion in their face as well.
How do you get the second place salesperson to get going though? Because that's always the challenge, right?
Yeah.
The person that's in first place, that's the best salesperson in the group. Okay, we can clean things up and make it easy for them. But I want the second place and the third place salesperson to say, that's me in a year. How do you inspire that? And we got to wrap up quickly. So be quick on this one.
Yeah, I'll be quick on this. Obviously, when you have success, anybody has success in an organization, the sales guys are competitive. They're watching that and they're going to steal great ideas, needless to say. And they're going to say, hey, how come I can't have the same thing that this guy's having? So you have that. You have a little bit of it that you can play on. But also, once you put those processes, we talked about the scaling processes in place, even someone who may not have a complete belief in it, as long as they've been onboarded correctly, and as long as all those processes in place, somebody that may not have the experience of that primary seller yet can see how they can move a lot more quickly with confidence. They may not have the same close rate as that person or what have you, but they can, with confidence, continue proceeding because this is the way. There's a process that's in place for them a roadmap, if you will, for them to run on.
I think that's great. And I really do appreciate it because that's always the challenge, right? So you get one going. Can you get 3 going? Because as I said before, you're not really a leader unless you have got multiple people working their way. And a lot of times that means you don't have to have Michael Jordan in every position. You can have a full team. You can have a complementary team because Michael's going to get double covered or LeBron James is going to get double covered. He's got to dump it off to somebody. And everybody else has to be able to step up and hit that 3-pointer when they're open. They got to hit the deal. I think that's really important. So as we warned you, John, 15 minutes goes incredibly fast.
No, I appreciate it.
Do me a favor. You share a lot of good wisdom. If somebody wants to reach out and talk to you, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way? We'll put it in the show notes as well.
So my LinkedIn profile, John Spencer. I'm in Austin, Texas. My business is Clear Direction Sales Development. You can find me there. My contact information is out there. I don't hide it like a lot of people do. My phone number is on there, my email, my Calendly. You can definitely get hold of me and I'll talk to anybody. I will tell you this. 30-minute call all the time, every time for a CEO of a $2 million plus business. I've got time for you. I'll make time. Weekends, nights, whatever.
We appreciate that. We appreciate you as well. And we forgot to mention up front and the whole time, this is an audio only podcast, but Kevin and I can have video on with you and we can see the flag behind you. We can see the accommodation. So we do appreciate your service. You served in the military for us for 10 years or so. So we do appreciate that you gave back to our nation. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
John, Kevin, thank you very much. Kevin?
John, thanks, and happy selling.
Today's conversation with longtime sales leader John Spencer really opened our eyes to the danger of optimizing an entire sales organization around one superstar performer. One of the most insightful moments was when John explained how sales teams lacking a defined ideal customer profile often force even their best sellers to operate blindly, relying more on hustle than strategy. When the whole organization rallies around a shared ICP and unified messaging, even your top performer gains clarity, consistency, and a clear path to even higher achievement. And don't forget that powerful, actionable item. Stop idolizing your top seller. Start systematizing their success. If you wait too long to document and scale what's working, you risk making your business fragile and overly dependent on a single point of failure. Take time today, not next week, to outline the processes that support repeatable sales performance across your entire team. If you loved this episode and you're serious about sales success, sales management, or simply want to grow your business with a stronger, more scalable revenue engine, reach out to Sean or Kevin. Their contact info is right in the show notes, along with a link to a quick sales assessment to help you find out if your sales team is on the right track or needs a fresh perspective. Be sure to subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode full of practical strategies and expert insight. Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Happy selling!